Welcome to Foster My Stories, the achievement-focused podcast for foster care, adoption, orphan, inclusive of underserved communities. I'm your host, Shalina Michelle Tate, and on today's cast episode, I'm going to be interviewing Marcus Evans, who is currently a resident here in the Midlands from Georgia. Marcus, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Mary.
Doing well, doing well. Marcus is the featured story of March for this month. I'm so excited. Marcus, could you tell the listeners about a little bit about your background, like your upbringing? How was it for you going to school? And just a little bit about your background.
I can tell you I was a military brat, so I was moving around from place to place. I was born in Columbus, Georgia, in Northern Army Hospital. Shortly after that, I moved to North Carolina, where I've attended school. And since then, I've not been, I'd say, the best at school. I've always done just enough work to get past, or just to pass. After, I don't know, recently it's changed. I wanted to do better because I feel it's just doing enough to pass is not going to get far in life.
I understand that you going to school and kind of moving around, and he was transparent about he did just enough to pass. But I'm willing to imagine, and Marcus can tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think it was just that he just didn't do the work because he didn't care. I believe he was one of those really smart students who people just kind of stayed on him to kind of like show his work. Are you one of the kids that's math problem? You could just do it in your head and you're like asking, why do you have to show the work?
That's exactly how it is.
Yes. Hey, I understand that. Once again, thank you for being here with us on Foster My Stories. Marcus, can you tell listeners from being a student, and of course, like you just said, that, school really wasn't your thing, but like you confirmed, yes, you was that student who you knew the work, and it's just that, hey, you was more laid back and reserved or whatnot. Take us from being a student to deciding I want to do something different. How was that for you?
First thing that really got my mind thinking was the question that my teachers all used to ask: what are you gonna do when you get out of high school? What are you gonna do when you grow up? I ain't really had much thought about that. I was like, live my life. I don't know.
Yes.
But I got to thinking. I was like, well, my hobby is flying. I love to fly. I was around airplanes since I was a baby. My mom was a flight attendant. When she was with my dad, he was in the Army, and of course my dad was a jump master, so he was jumping out of planes left and right, and I don't know, it just called me.
Yes. That's pretty cool. So I am assuming military, your journey as far as seeing that with your parents, gravitating towards that, what started the stages of you being able to really get closer to that and participate in that?
I went to the barbershop professional cuts. Mr. Jackson told me that he had a person that he considers a friend, and he's a pilot. And I was like, quit playing. He was like, yeah. So, and he already knows that I love to fly. I love playing. He was like, okay, we can give you his number, and then I can text your number to him so that y'all can get in touch.
Yes.
So y'all can go up and fly.
Oh, man.
So I'd say about a day or two later, we both got in touch with each other, and we were scheduling our first flight.
Oh, my goodness.
And, it is amazing.
Man, you just heard it there, gracefully chosen listeners. Marcus was saying, and those of you who are local to the Midlands, especially the Columbia area, Professional Cuts is located right there off Fort Jackson Boulevard. I think it's gate 3 or 4 off to the side, right next to tailoring shop. Professional Cuts, definitely I recommend anyone who's looking for a great haircut, great environment, to go visit Ramon Jackson, who's the barber there. That's awesome to hear that you went there just for a visit, and then connection, really connecting with that connection. And then, like you said, 2 days or so later, getting to fly your first flight. I'm not sure if you've seen the new Wonder Woman or not.
I haven't.
I'm not going to spoil it, but I imagine Steve Rogers, you probably was a kid in the candy store. Am I saying that right?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And for listeners who don't know, Marcus, could you tell listeners how old you are?
I'm 16 years old.
I wanted to interview Marcus because, I kind of heard his story visiting that same barbershop, Professional Cuts, right there off Fort Jackson Boulevard. And I'm like, wait a minute, you fly planes and you're how old? And so, yes, this is Marcus Evans. He is a pilot, and I wanted really for you listeners to hear his story, to be encouraged, and to also know that you can encourage your youth. It doesn't matter, what stage of life they're in. Like Marcus, school may not kind of be their thing, not because they don't care, but they may have talents in other areas. Like Marcus said earlier, he saw his parents, and that really encouraged and motivated him. Marcus, from that meeting with Pilot, was that the beginning stages of you going forward? Was that your only single training, or that was like, okay, open up more doors for you?
I would say that opened up more doors for possibilities. Recently, I have started trying because there is a pilot scholarship that I wanted to get, and it actually pays for you to get your pilot's license.
Oh my goodness.
It just helps you get classes for it. I mean, I didn't get to make it, sadly, because I was literally 1 point off my GPA.
Oh no, it's okay. No worries. You're gonna get it next time. How can listeners contact you or connect with you?
You can reach me at demarcus615@yahoo.com. That's a capital D, lowercase a, MARCUS 615@yahoo.com. You can also text me at 706-761-1164. I'm always on my phone unless I'm at work.
Yes, and the reason why I was asking, because I have a diverse group of listeners, and I'm hoping that after really hearing your testimony or connecting to your story, that someone out there who does have some strings will be able to connect with you, contact you, and hopefully kind of like donate to your cause. If there's any young Gracefully Chosen listeners on here, stay encouraged. School's not your thing. You may have a pull somewhere else. You may desire to be a pilot like Marcus, or you may desire to go into government or become the next doctor. Whatever your thing is, here at Gracefully Chosen, we want you to stay encouraged and take one day at a time. For listeners who may be young or wanting to go a different route, do you have any advice you would like to share with them?
My one thing I would say is, no matter the standpoint, no matter where you are, it doesn't affect you unless you let it affect you. I know for me that I never had like a lot of friends. I'm not really a friendly type person.
Yes.
If you could say that, especially in the morning, people. But I don't seek validation. That's one thing that I've never seen or thought about. I'd say just stay to yourself. I'm gonna sound like a parent, but get the books.
Yes.
Study.
Yes.
Opportunities that you get from actual school is amazing.
I know that's definitely words of wisdom, and wisdom comes from any age. You don't have to be elderly to have wisdom, and clearly from my perspective, Marcus has a lot of wisdom, and I back that 1,000%. Stay focused, really. Be mindful of your surroundings, be mindful of friendships, relationships. Not that you're cutting people off or being mean or rude or anything, but in order to progress forward and have a focus, you can't be distracted by anyone or anything pulling you in a negative path. I'm imagining that's also what Marcus is also saying by, yes, stay focused and stay in the books. You may be in school right now. Just take one day at a time. Each success from your classes is propelling you towards a purpose, and your goal is really to find that purpose. Marcus, are there anything in the future that you would like to further make an impact in, as far as, I'm gonna go ahead and say, budding career, or is there anything or efforts possibly in your community that you're wanting to do in the future?
I do a lot of community service with ROTC program that I'm in as often as I can, but of course with the pandemic and all that, no one is really wanting a bunch of random strangers to come in and try to help them, which I understand. Whenever I get enough money during my career, when I get a solid foothold in this world, I am gonna start donating to corporations that will help further educate young people who want to become a pilot, because it is truly an amazing thing.
I'm hoping one day you can open up your own school. I'm hoping that will be a thing for you. You said as well, I'm hoping that more leaders will consider as well donating to the efforts for youth who are wanting to go into that field. And that is pretty cool. And once again, dynamic words of wisdom coming from him. Do you have any siblings, any brothers, sisters?
No, ma'am, I don't.
Okay.
I consider my cousins, from my mom's side, pretty close, like brothers and sisters. because I was around them.
Yes.
Like my whole life when I was growing up, it was always open. I couldn't wake up and not see them. That's how big they were.
Well, I imagine that they definitely look up to you, and I like what you said earlier, how don't need anyone to validate you, and that's a lesson for us all. Doesn't matter our age, that's a lesson for us all to know that as long as each day we're taking strides to just do the best that we can and to progress forward in a positive way, we don't need anyone to validate us. But once again, I commend you for really just being an inspiration, just taking the steps forward to realize your dreams. I know your parents are not available right now, but just tell them that it was an honor to interview their son. Just could you also further tell listeners more about your parents' background, because that obviously was an influence on you wanting to go into the field.
Flight attendant either before or still during when I was born, but I'm pretty sure it was before. Before I was born, my mom was a flight attendant, and my dad, from bouncing around from place to place, finally came in contact with my mom through some networking with his friends. But after that, it was just a hit and run. Like they just had one date, and it was sparks from there.
Aww.
He was, I was forget the terminology for the Army. I'm Air Force with you guys, but the Army terminology.
Yes.
I believe he was a Ranger.
Once again, their connection, is bringing the dynamics through you, the impact that I know you're going to continue making. And before we go, do you have any additional advice for anyone and most of the time on Foster My Stories, we do talk to different communities, foster care, adoption, underserved, orphan communities, basically from your experience as a student and life.
As far as I know, you can never truly enjoy your success until you fail. And for me, that means a lot of things for school and outside reality as of, dealing with jobs and all that.
Yes.
I'd say never give up.
Yes.
It's going to seem tough in the beginning or rough and all that. Trust me, it is, but you're going to pull through as long as you keep with it.
I wanted him to answer an additional, because once again, I want to get on those teachers who were just getting on him, because I know I said, you know what, he was smart. And a lot of times teachers want you to show your work and they kind of stay on you. But from my standpoint, Marcus has a lot of wisdom, and it's been an honor having him on Foster My Stories. Are there any projects outside of flying that you're desiring to work on in the future, or any books or anything like that?
Not at this moment now.
No worries. It may come later on, or you may have your own clothing line, Flying with Marcus. Okay, I'm just going ahead of myself. No worries. But once again, I thank you for being a guest here on Foster My Stories. You're an inspiration. And once again, gracefully chosen listeners, he is our March featured of the month. And if you have been encouraged by his testimony and really just his upbringing, I encourage you to reach out to him at the email that he left as well, and the connections that he left earlier. And if you would like to be a guest here on Foster My Stories as a featured community or special guest expert, you can inbox your information on the Gracefully Chosen 2020 Facebook page, and you can catch new episodes Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time via Red Circle Podcast, Spotify, Amazon Audible, Radio Public, and Google Podcasts. And remember, being foster, adopted, orphaned, and underserved simply means you're gracefully chosen. Take care.